Okay, hey, welcome everybody. It is Wednesday at 7 o'clock. Time for Sci-Fi Distilled. Welcome, Mary Beth.
Hi, Dr. Alex.
Already. Doc's here already.
Hi, Rizzo. How are you tonight?
I'm doing all right. As well as can be expected, as my dad used to say, or says, I should say. Anyway, we are covering Mandalorian. I guess we did Mandalorian a ways back. I think we just did the first season.
I think we did too. Are we doing 2 and 3 tonight, or just 3?
Yeah, we'll just do we're kind of doing the whole series as it stands today, because I feel like we're at a turning point with Mandalorian at the end of the season. So if you haven't seen season 3, there's going to be spoilers. So just so you guys know. But before we get into that, I think you've got some news.
I've got a lot of news. Let me see if we can't fly through it tonight. Last week, because we jumped straight into Picard, we had 2 guests last week, so we jumped straight into Picard, so I didn't do news, so we got to catch up a little. Last week, V, do you remember the good V, the old V, the 1980s V with Mark Singer and Jane Badler? V turned 40. Wow. How did that happen?
Makes you feel old, doesn't it?
Oh, it makes me feel that. It was a great show. I loved it. Do you remember Jane
Badler? As a kid. It was one of those shows I didn't get to watch all the time because, we had the one TV, and if Dad didn't want to watch that show,
you weren't going to watch it.
Didn't get to watch that show. So I didn't get to watch a lot of that show.
And Robert Englund played the one alien that was,
the nicer one.
The Big Lebowski.
Freddie.
Yes, Freddie. That's right. Yes. The Big Lebowski also turned 25. I don't know how that movie is 25 years old, but yes, Tempest Fusion. The big news these past couple weeks has been Babylon 5 has announced an animated movie. 25 years later, Warner Brothers says Babylon will continue as animation. Babylon 5 creator J. Michael Straczynski posted the news on Twitter saying Babylon 5 animated movie coming from Warner Brothers Animation and Warner Brothers Home Entertainment. Movie title, release date, and other details will be coming in 1 week from today. He did that last week. And sure enough, today we find out that it's called Babylon 5 The Road Home, which means I will always call it Babylon 5 The Voyage Home because my brain conflates things like that. Babylon 5 The Road Home. It will star Bruce Boxenleitner as John Sheridan, Claudia Christian as Susan Ivanova, Peter Jurassic is back as Londo, Billy Mummy is back as Lanier, Tracy Scoggins is Elizabeth, and our friend Patricia Tallman is back as Lita Alexander. Now, you may be wondering, what about characters whose cast members have passed? They will still be in the show. Let me see. Jeffrey, I'm just seeing the names. Michael Garibaldi, that character will be there. Kakar will be there. Delenn, which was Mira Furlan, she has passed, but we will have a Delenn. The other actors will be playing these.
That's going to be cool. I'm looking forward to that.
I am too. That should be. It's set to be released this summer. No specific date has been announced, or at least no specific date.
Is it a series or just a movie?
I think just a movie, but I think they're hoping it'll pick up and become a series.
Cool.
The Dune trailer, the Dune Part 2, the second part of Dune trailer dropped. That's still out November 3rd. No surprises there. We knew what was going on. The Writers Guild of America. The Writers Guild of America is on strike. They're hoping for better pay in light of the studio's rising income from streaming services and other things going on. This is delaying Strange New Worlds Season 3. This is delaying Star Wars Andor. This is delaying Stranger Things Season 5 and many of your other favorites, including stuff like I like late night talk shows like Seth Meyers and Colbert and Kimmel and those guys. They've all been off for like 2 weeks now. So I haven't seen them for a while.
Oh, that's true. I noticed John Oliver didn't do anything.
And John Oliver's off. Yeah, all the writers are off. Yep. Yeah. So that kind of hurts that.
You have to support these guys, and I'm going to say because they were getting screwed by the studios because they weren't getting very little or nothing from streaming services. In other words, the royalties from that, they weren't getting any money.
The studios and the producers
studios are claiming they don't have any money, which we all know is a load of crap.
Yeah.
So
you look at like the studio heads at their incomes, like in the close to the billions. I mean, it's unbelievable.
So it sucks because it always delays a lot of stuff. This happens every once in a while, but we really have to do support if we want to keep having the shows that we have.
So. Absolutely, we do. Moving on, Guardians of the Galaxy is out, and it is out with 600 different versions. The screen ratios were tweaked and optimized for different screen sizes. So wherever you go, you're going to see the best version. Now, it is common for studios to send out different aspect ratios, but 600 is the most they've ever done.
That seems exorbitant.
It does seem exorbitant. I believe they may have tweaked sound for different sound systems too. I'm not completely. One report said yes, and one report said no.
Interesting fact on that. I don't. Maybe this is where you have this in your news, but this has been the lowest grossing Marvel.
I'm about to talk about. Okay, let's have a conversation about that right now. So, Guardians. So NPR, Scott Mantz, and Den of Geek, and a number of other outlets are all asking the same question: has superhero fatigue set in? I want to ask you, Rizzo.
I've said this. Guardians? Have I not said this? That we are getting kind of tired of the superhero thing?
Yeah. So what you just said, Guardians of the Galaxy was projected to have something like a $150 million opening, but it underperformed and came in at around 110. Is this evidence that audiences are bored of superhero movies? I mean, I got to admit, I was not pumped for Ant-Man and Wasp: Quantumania. I didn't really care about Shazam! Fury of the Gods. What do you think?
I agree. I think there's first of all, remember, this is the third in that series of films. Yes. And I agree. I think the audiences are kind of a little burned out on
it's not just the movies.
I mean, what do you guys think? You in your comments? I mean, I've been saying this for a while. I'm like, another superhero movie, and I think it's been overdone. I think maybe the TV shows are doing better than the films are at this point.
Some of them, yes, because it's easier to digest. It's like, especially little 30-minute ones. It's like,
yeah, and there's been some really good ones. Like I don't know if you saw the Hawkeye one.
Hawkeye was good.
It was a really good one. Moon Knight, was it Moon Knight? Moon Knight. That was a really good one.
But they were easy. You didn't have to keep. Well, you kind of still had to keep track. See, that's the thing is audiences now need to keep track of movies, TV shows, printed material, shorts, if there are any, it's a lot. Do you think it's becoming too much?
Well, I mean, it all depends. Yes. I mean, clearly I think studios, no matter what franchise you're talking about, they're digging into this deep, getting very deep. Like we even see it with Star Wars. We can talk about that when we get into how deep they're going into their other shows, even some of their fiction novels. They're pulling from that. We've seen Star Trek doing it, going way back, pulling stuff from all over the place. And if you're new to that genre and don't have that hardcore fan background, you might get lost or just start to not care. You know what I'm saying? And I think
we can talk about that with
I think you got to look at the mainstream. Average person is not us. Okay. As far as who watches these movies. Okay. The average is not a hardcore science fiction nerd geek love stuff. You know what I'm saying? They are a average person that likes that stuff for entertainment, but when they go home for the night, that's the end of their science fiction connection. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
they're not living it like we do with all our crap and so, you know, I agree. I think we could do a whole show on that and debate it. But I think probably you're right. I think some of it is audience are probably getting burned out. I actually wanted to see this film and I was actually considering going. I haven't been to the theater since pre-COVID.
Yeah, neither have I.
So I was actually considering going to see it because it's probably my favorite Marvel.
Yeah, mine too. I enjoyed Guardians. I didn't know who they were. So I'm not a reader of the comics. So these guys were strangers to me, and it turned out I loved them. Like I knew who, I'd heard of Captain America, obviously, but I didn't know who these guys will.
So anyway,
all this other material puts pressure on the movie, or maybe puts pressure on the writers, I guess, to create a movie that is a good standalone. Like it still has to stand alone.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think it has, and it's got to be a decent story. Obviously, we know effects don't carry it.
And we talked about this. Yeah,
that's one of the things I think Guardians always had going for them. I think they had that humor mixed in with it, and the music, and I think they had a good mix, which is why those films were, especially the first one, was very popular.
Yes.
So I think that one does, you can pull it out, and it kind of does stand alone. And I think it does speak to a lot of mainstream. So I'm kind of surprised that this is the one that's showing. But, look at all the DC films that have just fell on their face.
Yeah. So, and they're about to release Blue Beetle. I have no idea who or what Blue Beetle is. Like, I cannot get pumped. I mean, it's DC. I know that much. That's all I know. It's DC.
I've never heard of it. I'm sorry, but I'm not a comic book guy. Never. But
it kind of touches a little bit, and we can talk about. I know you want to do the drink, and we'll dive in to Mandalorian, but it touches on what I was talking about a couple weeks back, where I'm like, hey, I think Disney is forcing us to cross-watch. Like when they did that weird thing with Book of Boba Fett, where they suddenly had like 2 Mandalorian episodes smack in the middle of Boba Fett. It's like forced us, and now we have to like. With everything we're going to talk about Mando tonight with Bo-Katan, you got to know what was going on in Clone Wars and Rebels.
Absolutely. Yep.
Otherwise you're lost.
Yes. That's kind of what I'm referring to. You know what I'm saying? If you didn't watch Clone Wars and Rebels, you're going to be lost.
You're going to be lost. All right. What are we drinking tonight as we discussed Clone Wars and Rebels?
Well, the Baby Yoda drink. I thought this would be a good one. So, little Baby Yoda. Even though I know it's Grogu, but this came out before. So it's basically Grey Goose vodka, some fresh lime juice, I'm not sure how to pronounce this correctly, Demerara syrup, which is just a kind of brown cane sugar. It's a granulated sugar that you just mix it with some water in a pan, make syrup out of it. Not a big deal. And then kiwi. So pretty simple drink.
The peanut gallery has some great points. Bill is saying maybe it's really writer's fatigue. If this story is good, that people will still go. And Dr. Alexander saying, I think it's not fatigue, but quality of writing has deteriorated. Yes.
Well, yes. I think you're right. I think they're getting burned out on storylines, and and I think the audiences get tired of. I think we saw this a lot, even with Discovery, and people are getting tired of the world endings, the universe ending storylines, and then not getting cross-referenced. If you have a big universe and it doesn't get cross-referenced. It's like, oh, look, especially with TV shows. I think every, when you do the story arc and the whole show is, the end, it's going to be the end of the universe or whatever. If we don't do whatever we have to do, that becomes a strain after a while.
I agree. I completely agree. I'm just reading some of the. Chris is telling me the Blue Beetle is a lower level here. I'm gonna have to look him up, Chris.
Must be very low, Chris.
The Gardens open.
He was not in the Super Friends.
It's not a good.
Pretty much, if it's DC and he never was on the Super Friends, I don't know who they are.
Yeah. Super Friends. If you're not in the Hall of Justice,
I don't know who you are as far as DC goes.
The many crossovers. Yeah, Chris, there's 1 million crossovers.
Yeah, and then the other thing with the comics, I think why I've always steered away from is they get into all that multiverse stuff. And it's like, you really can't keep track. I just cannot keep any of this straight. I don't want to keep any of it.
I have the multiverse somewhere.
So, but I mean, they're all doing it now. Everybody's doing multiverse. So, and it's the only way. To me, it's a writing cheat to change canon.
But but they did in Star Trek. They're like, oh no,
they all do it.
Universe. I mean, they all do it. The only one that hasn't really has Star Wars done any significant time travel?
No, none at all.
They'll Star Wars.
They're going to have shows that are very far in the past, so that it's almost like a clean slate.
I think in Rebels, didn't Ezra, that thing that Ezra was in, didn't it kind of time travel?
Maybe a little. I don't remember, honestly, in Rebels. I don't know. But if it was, it wasn't anything significant or changing.
It wasn't the way Star Trek uses it. Star Wars, I'm asking you, please, can you continue to tell this story with no time traveling? I don't want.
Yes, I agree. I think time travel is kind of always been a.
And if you could also, Star Wars, Jon Favreau, I'm talking to you. And Dave Filoni,
because he watches the show.
Avoid the multiverse, That would be swell.
And I think for the most part they have.
And
we're going to talk about that. Is there any more news? I'm
done. I'm done with the news. We did the drink. We're good.
Okay. So Mandalorian. So this show is kind of like a lot, like you said. I think we were talking offline. There's a lot of kind of negativity about about this season because it was more about Bo-Katan than it was about.
We can talk about.
Give us the top complaints.
The top critiques. Let me pull them up super fast here. Number 1, season 3 criticisms: slow and unfocused. Arguably, your main character was Mando and Grogu, and somewhere in there, the main character, the story was stopped being Mando's story and started being Bo-Katan's story. And then there's one weird random episode where they went off to see Lizzo. So it just, I don't know. I think that's a valid criticism. I think it was a little meandering in its goals.
I think this is what I think. And again, this is just my opinion. I think the Grogu story was supposed to end with Skywalker rescuing them from.
And so now they don't know what to do.
Okay. I think that was supposed to be, he was supposed to go with Luke, and that was the end of that story. I suspect the popularity of Grogu forced Disney, aka Kathleen Kennedy, to kind of say, we need to keep that storyline going. And again, I could be wrong. Favreau would have to weigh in and say, no, it was always my plan to have him stay with Mando.
Yeah.
But let's keep in mind that the show is called The Mandalorian. Not the Din Djarin.
Not the you're right. Well, we don't know who
it's the Mandalorian. There could be any Mandalorian. So I'm wondering, and again, this is my opinion, if now that we've kind of seen Grogu and Mando kind of sitting on their homestead, little farm there that they have, whatever it is, and they're going to do their odd jobs here and there. They're kind of retired, if you will. That we're going to start seeing. That's what the whole point was, to shift to the Bo-Katan.
We can do predictions.
Who is also a Mandalorian.
I have more critiques I have 5 more critiques, but for prediction, they were going to do Rangers of the New Republic until they dropped Cara Dune. So I bet they're going to seg Din Djarin somehow into becoming a Ranger of the New Republic and then take him to do that show instead of
perhaps
whoever was going to do it. More
critiques. She's kind of the leader of Mandalore, though. I don't really see her. Right?
No, Din Djarin. They're going to take Din Djarin.
Oh, Din Djarin is being him.
Okay. Did I say Bo? I'm sorry.
I think that Bo. I thought you said it.
No, this season had no villain until the last 2 episodes when we saw Gideon. We did see Elia Kane in one bizarre offshoot episode where it was an entire episode where we saw no Grogu, no Din Djarin, just Elia Kane and Dr. Pershing. No villain. What do you think?
Yeah, I thought that whole storyline was going to develop more than it did.
I did too.
It seemed like they brought Gideon back and then got rid of him very quickly.
But knowing what I know, like knowing how in the middle of Book of Boba Fett, they suddenly did some Mando stuff. In the middle of this, I think I'm back to my forced cross-watch theory. I think we have to watch all this stuff to know what's going on.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if some of it's intentional.
Oh, they'll pick it up and run with it later.
But again, I think them trying to dig deep to the fan base, because I think I don't want to say I know Favreau, but I think I know where his head is and Fellini's head is.
I do want to talk about what Favreau's head is.
Yeah, I think they're digging into that fan base. And they do it. I think Star Wars, or at least I should, The Mandalorian, has been doing the fan service better than Paramount has with Star Trek by far. The current season of Picard aside, they seem to pull just the right amount of stuff from the past and stick it in.
Yeah,
where it works and it doesn't feel forced.
And it does work. It doesn't feel like forced.
It doesn't feel forced.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Star Trek has been feeling forced. Like it's not naturally, they're purposely putting it in, they're changing it.
Guardian of Forever and Disco, hella forced.
What's that? I'm sorry.
Guardian of Forever and
Disco. Oh, that was terrible. That was
hella forced.
And he knew it was coming. you knew it was coming in that they were talking about Discovery, by the way, and they brought, and not only was it not the Guardian that we know, it was a guy named, what was his name?
Carl.
Like Carl or something. This old man Carl was the Guardian of Forever. And but the thing was, I said from the beginning when they went into 900 years into the future, and they had Michelle Yeoh there. I can't think of her. Giorgio's character with them, but she's supposed to do the Section 31 show. So I'm like, they're gonna have to get her back.
Get her out.
The current time, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And sure enough, let's just have the Guardian do it. And it was just, that was painful. And again, I've said this. I know it's like I'm like a broken record, but Star Wars, or at least Mandalorian, or you watch those shows and everything feels like Star Wars.
Yeah.
They don't change everything. They didn't change the purely uniform. They add stuff.
Yeah, even
they add stuff, but they don't change what's already been there. Like,
and they don't. Imperial uniforms were the same. Nothing has been retconned that I can think of, or
I can think of. Yeah.
If you guys can think of something, let me know. Put it in the comments. But I don't. There's not like the Gorn. Remember how they retconned the Gorn in Strange New Worlds? I mean,
oh god, that was so bad, and it was so unnecessary.
Yeah,
because they just could have come up with. They could have just come up with any alien. You have an entire universe.
Any other scary alien.
Come up with any. Make up another alien. Any aliens. Pick something.
All right, back with the criticisms. Din Djarin was weak this season. Do you think he was weak? He got saved in the last episode alone, or the last couple episodes. He got saved 6 times. Twice by Bo when he in the water, he fell in the water, and then with that other creature thing. Twice by Grogu with the Praetorian red dudes, and then Bo again, and then Grogu with the Force shield at the end. Is Din Djarin weak this season?
I don't necessarily think. I think. I mean, he's not impervious. I mean, he's not
impervious. I think he had enough moments. I see.
Yeah, I mean, he was up against. I think part of the thing, especially with Grogu, they were trying to show that he was
growing stronger with the Force.
And he was stronger than.
It's not like he needs to take a nap like he used to in season 1.
Right. Yeah.
I disagree with this criticism. I feel like Din had plenty of opportunities to show that he was still kind of a badass Mandalorian. But whatever.
It's funny when he fell in the water. Initially, I thought he was dragged into the water.
I
thought the thing, whenever he saw the.
But if he was so heavy, why wasn't she? So how did she get back up?
Because she was the rocket back, I guess.
Where was his rocket pack? I'm so confused.
I think the thing stole.
He doesn't even dog paddle. Like what was happening? The only reason we went down there is because we needed to see the mythosaur. That was the only reason.
Yeah, and that's what I thought dragged him down initially. I didn't realize he fell. I guess I missed that.
Going another criticism along the same lines. No character arc for him this season. So do you remember the first season when he's like, I can bring you in warm or I can bring you in cold? And he was so badass. And he went in that first season from that way to like caring about Grogu. And you saw like a character arc. This season, no character. How did he change this season? I don't think he did.
I don't think he did. It was the Bo-Katan show.
It was the Bo-Katan show. She had a great character arc this season.
Yeah, she did. But again, I think maybe they're thinking, and this is just my feeling, is that they're thinking this is a show about Mandalorians, so to speak, not just one. That's kind of the evolution of the show, is that we're kind of, because now we have the 2 clans that are basically back together. We have the kind of this very orthodox, don't take your helmet off Mandalorians. And then we got the ones
talk about that in a second.
They'll pop their helmets off for anything.
I'm going to talk about orthodox in a second. The last two criticisms. Criticism number 5. The cameos sucked. Okay, look, guys. I know that this was not like the end of season 2 where we were on our couches hyperventilating and screaming at the TV when Luke showed up. Like, that was the single greatest cameo in all of television history, and it will never be topped. Fight me on that. But these cameos were not. They were okay. Ahmed Best was okay. I actually really, really, really appreciated Ahmed Best, and I thought they did right by him. Lizzo and Jack Black was just weird. Christopher Lloyd was weird. Tim Meadows, I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah, there was just a few. They were just, I mean. Yeah, the Lizzo Jack Black episode was kind of just
that was weird.
Odd.
It was like NCIS on that planet. I don't know the planet's name. NCIS, whatever the planet's name. It was just weird. Okay, the last criticism. The Darksaber was meaningless.
In what way?
You don't need it to wield power. You don't need it to.
Well, it was a symbol. It was like the.
It's just a MacGuffin.
Or it was the symbol of power. It obviously had more meaning. If you watched, what was it on Rebels or was it? It was
Rebels. Clone Wars. Oh, now I'm mixed up too.
It was Clone Wars. It had more meaning and it had more symbology.
No barking. Sorry, dogs
are not that loud. It's not that loud. Just ignore them. Okay. So anyway, you need some like doggy quaaludes.
I do. Ty.
Drug the dogs.
Ty, do you want a treat?
Mine's right. Ripley's right there. She never says a word.
All right, go ahead.
So anyway, I lost my train of thought.
Oh, the MacGuffin. The Darksaber was a MacGuffin.
Yeah, I mean, it's.
I don't
know. You're right. I don't know if it never particularly. I mean, what did you thought it was like?
We were like Darksaber. When it broke, I was like, okay, now what? Like, is she still the leader? Like, what was invested? What was really invested in this thing?
I don't know. It was just, to me, it was always just a symbol of the seat of power, so to speak.
Yeah.
And apparently it meant something to the Mandalorians. That whoever had it is
half of them anyway, because they were
remember you had the only way you could possess it is if you won it in battle.
Yes, it follows the Hogwarts. It follows the Harry Potter wand rules of ownership and possessiveness. You have to.
Well, I think that's why it's kind of like that sword in the stone thing that only the true king can wield Excalibur. I mean, we've seen this before, right? We've seen this in Excalibur lore. It's like
distributing swords is no way.
Like there's just no Lady of the Lake in this instance.
There's just no Lady of the Lake. But you know what? There is a ton, and I'm about to put a link here in the chat to a fabulous video by Screen Crush by Ryan Airy and the team over at Screen Crush. There is so much Jewish symbolism. Like this thing, season 3 is embedded. It's loaded with Jewish storytelling, and I want to put a link. This video is absolutely worth the watch. And interestingly enough, just like Bo-Katan, Jon Favreau, dad was Catholic and mom was Jewish, and so he too is someone who walks in both worlds. And it is very, very interesting. I highly recommend you all give it a watch. Well, so when you said the Orthodox, like there's the Orthodox Mandalorians, yeah, there is the Orthodox Mandalorians.
This is what I'm saying. They're very strict. If you take it off or you have it forcibly taken off, you're out. You're out of the club unless you go walk in some radioactive water or something. I guess I don't know.
Bathe.
So, yes. Yeah. The other thing that bothered, I did think that the whole bringing in Moff Gideon at the very end there and then kind of getting rid of him so quickly almost seemed like it was an afterthought.
Actually, think about it. Was that Moff Gideon or was that one of his
clones?
They did show a clone opening its eyes. Also, the first Moff Gideon we met had the mustache, and none of the clones had the mustache. The Moff that died did not have a mustache. I think potentially it was.
Well, and you realize that their whole point is they're trying to drive the story towards The Force Awakens.
Yes,
so
they are.
That whole thing with the clone, they're trying to clone the Emperor. That whole thing so that they can bring him back, Palpatine back. That's where all this is, and they've been pretty open about
or
that.
Snoke.
They've been trying to tell the story that will eventually. Because
we were all, when we watched that movie and it was like somehow Palpatine came, we were all like, come on. So now they're like, oh, we got to justify this. We better explain this. Maybe they are retconning. So they are retconning.
Well, no, because it was never established. Right?
Oh, yeah,
I mean, we don't know. We never knew. when we saw Force Awakens, remember, we didn't have we had nothing between Jedi and that.
Yeah, that's true.
There was nothing. It was just this empty space. So, what I thought was ridiculous about Force Awakens, not to get too far off Mando, was the whole movie was just bad because it was just a rehash of A New Hope.
Yeah, Star Wars. Yeah, Star Wars.
And it was like, what happened? Like there should have been more explanation as to why is the New Republic only like these little few worlds and not bigger, and why is there still all this?
So that's probably what they're in the universe. Yeah, and I know Lucas really, really enjoyed it rhymes. It's like poetry. It rhymes. He likes when there's repeating themes and repeating ideas. I get that, but this was not the way you do it. Not the way you do it. Dr. Alexander says he thinks the story arc from Mandalorian was very good, but the individual episodes were not what was expected. So many other people, Doc, have said that exact same thing. And they explored
well, go ahead. I'm sorry. Finish.
He says they explored other facets of the Star Wars universe. Those expecting what they wanted was criticized. So I don't mean there, Doc, but yeah, you're absolutely right. So many other people are like, well, this wasn't what I expected.
But here's my thinking. Were we expecting too much? Because, as you said, when we had this unbelievable reveal of Skywalker at the end of season 2.
I know, it was crazy.
And how do you top that? I mean, was it let down because of our own expectations?
Like we were jazzed when we saw Ahsoka. We were like, "Oh my God, it's Ahsoka!"
No, and again, I think maybe that's going to be the new thing because the trailer for Ahsoka looks awesome. They've got Thrawn in there. I have a feeling that that's going to be an epic, at least the first season. I can't speak to the whole thing, but
it should be good. It should all tie in.
Yeah, I think Thrawn. I think Star Wars needed somebody like that character. If you don't, like I said, if you haven't read any of the books or watched,
you're right. Rizzo, you're absolutely right. How do you stop season 2? Ahsoka, Luke Skywalker, season 3, Lizzo, Jack Black. Like it just
yeah. I think it's our own letdown because you couldn't keep that without going. I think you could have. I mean, what are we gonna do?
Who are you gonna bring back?
The only thing you could have had was like, what are you gonna bring in a Han Solo cameo at that point?
No one else. Maybe Adam Driver because he would no,
he still would have been too young.
You're right. He was
too young. Remember, this isn't that long after Jedi.
I'm over it. Like,
you would have had to bring in something like that, and I don't think that would have worked. I think that would have been a Paramount move. To try to bring in. Something else from, but I think when you think that the fact that they're not only they brought in Ahsoka, but they're making a show.
Yeah.
And if you look at the trailer, there's Sabine in there.
Yes, they're all in there. All the Rebels.
Chopper's in there. These are all characters from Rebels.
Hera.
Yeah, Hera. It's going to be, it's going to be good. I'm sure Ezra's going to be in there.
He should be.
I think that's kind of a neat fan base thing, especially if you haven't watched Rebels, by the way, guys, go watch it now. It's only like 4 seasons. It's not that.
It's shotgunnable. It's easier than Clone Wars, which was 7
easier than Clone Wars. I would check just so you can get familiar with those characters, and it's a good series. It's a good series.
Yes, it's really good.
And Thrawn is in it.
Yes. Jeff Rubel is saying, Din this season, anyone could have played him. I think he's on his way. A lot of people said that, like, was Pedro busy doing his other
He was busy doing
job?
Last of Us.
Like, was it actually Pedro? No one knows.
Nobody knows.
It's going to end up being the Bo Show. It might be the Bo Show.
It was just the voice.
Maybe Pedro said, "Hey, I need out," and so they are segueing. That's what Bill is suggesting, that they're segueing it over to be the Bo.
I wonder if they're just segueing it to begin a change. They're saying like this is going to be the next chapter in the Mandalorian is going to be more about Bo-Katan and other men. You know what I'm saying? I wonder if that's what I'm saying. I wonder if that was his thinking. Is okay. We've told Din Djarin's story and Grogu's story.
Yeah.
Now we're going to move over to somebody else's Mandalorian story.
Yeah.
And whether now remember they're supposed to do another Boba Fett, correct? Book of Boba Fett.
I believe they are. Yeah, I believe
so.
They are.
We don't know where that's going to go. Now, hopefully, that's going to be more interesting than it was. I was actually more let down about that series than I was about this season.
That was another unfocused series that had no.
I thought they just did way too much backstory on how from the time he got out of the Sarlacc pit to the time he shows up on Mandalorian.
Yeah. On the Darksaber being a MacGuffin, Christopher and Martin are both saying that it's Excalibur. It's the Excalibur symbol, and they're probably right. Yes. And David Alexander is saying the Darksaber was a symbol for the original wielder. That was Tar Vizsla, one of the Vizslas, Paz Vizsla. But Evolution of the Mandalorians needed to get past that in order to be together. And you're right. That's what we kind of saw. Bo-Katan saying we're stronger together, and they kind of.
Yeah, so now they're going to try to rebuild Mandalore.
Rebuild Mandalore.
Pretty much glassed over, which it kind of was interesting because the way they always portrayed it was that it was just like unlivable, which they kind of said that it's not livable, but apparently it was, which always kind of cracked me up that.
But no one went and checked it out. You didn't even send a probe.
Check. You just assumed that what they were saying was true.
They're like the surface is fused green glass because of the nukes. So therefore,
but apparently people survived because there was people that never left.
They're laughing at me. The retconning was Palpatine, him being alive again. Yeah, you know what? You're right. They retconned Palpatine.
Kind of. I mean, I don't those Force Awakens series movies. I discount them. Kind of like people do with Star Trek, JJ Trek. I just discount it.
Yeah. Martin, was Thrawn's name dropped in season 3? It was definitely dropped in season 2 when Ahsoka fought that magistrate because she was looking for Thrawn. Was Thrawn's name? Yes, Thrawn's name was dropped by the Council of Shadows. So remember when Gideon went into that circular room and there was
they're definitely setting it up.
They definitely talking about Thrawn.
They're setting it up.
Yeah,
they're setting it up, and I'm going to tell you, he's going to be. If they do it right, he's going to be a phenomenal character.
I hope so.
You're going to love to hate this guy.
Jeff
more than you did Gideon.
Yes. Because he's far worse than Gideon. Yeah.
Well, he's far worse, but he's like he's not evil. He's just doing.
He's totally logical, right?
He's totally very logical, and he's just like but he's incredibly smart and an amazing tactician. But I don't think he's evil like the Emperor's evil. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not. I think he wants power, but it's not.
He just is cold about it.
He's just like doing his job.
Jeff for the Ahsoka show. Yeah, exactly. Jeff for the Ahsoka show. He says, I like to think it's awesome, but I just don't trust Kathleen not to screw it up. Yeah, that could happen.
Well, who's showrunner for Ahsoka? Is it not Favreau involved in that one?
I don't know.
I gotta look it up.
Better look it up. Han showing up as a Force ghost. Dr. Alexander, Han showing up as a Force ghost. That would be a jaw dropper. Yes, it would. And I think Harrison Ford would be surprised too.
Well, he's still alive technically at this point.
Hi, Ken Schmidt.
He's still alive at this point in time.
He's still what? Yeah, he's still alive.
On the Mandalorian timeline, not timeline, but
he is still alive.
He's still Han Solo's still alive. Remember, this takes place like shortly after Jedi. Not short, but like maybe a few years after Jedi. So we're not talking 30 because Force Awakens 30 years after Jedi.
Yeah, that's true.
So
yeah, take the Darksaber and throw it in the lake. And now we're back to strange women laying about lakes distributing swords. We just can't get away from that. Did you all watch the coronation?
No.
Congratulations, Canada. Where are my Canadians at? Congratulations.
So you got to change all their money now.
You got to change your money now.
So, no more.
All right, do we have? Oh, I told you about the Jewish thing. Did we talk about the future? Yeah, I said it's going to be the Rangers of the New Republic, the new Fenris Rangers of the New Republic. What do you guys think? What's next? Where are we going with this? So, like, is Din still a bounty hunter, and is he going to cross paths with Elia Kane? Will he cross paths with that Shadow Council? Will he eventually be after Thrawn, or is that just an Ahsoka thing? Like, where do you guys think this show is going? Will the Darksaber be reforged? Will there be a new one? Will they take the Kyber crystal and make a whole bunch of them for every Mandalorian so they can all have their own Darksabers?
I don't think that's going to happen.
That would be so
By the way, Dave Filoni is the writer for Ahsoka.
Oh, good.
So
that's
Filoni.
good.
Filoni. I always think I pronounced that right. It's Filoni, isn't it?
It's Filoni.
It's Filoni. So I always say it wrong. But anyway.
Grogu has his mech suit. Ooh, is Grogu ever going to talk? Like, so far, he's like, no.
Yeah. Well, remember now, I don't think Ahsoka is supposed to be just a mini series like Obi-Wan was.
Yeah.
I don't think it's supposed to be. I think it's supposed to just be a one.
2. I'm already ready for season 2.
Well, we'll see. That's how this may happen. You know what I'm saying? They may say, "Hey, this is really it's." So who knows? But I think that's initially. I think Disney is thinking of doing mini series rather than full blown continuing.
Well,
series.
we just talked about that when we were talking about Star Wars. I had said No, I'm sorry. Let me start that again. We had just talked about that when I was talking about Star Trek. I had said due to budget situations at Paramount, the future of Star Trek would be miniseries and movies. And sure enough, like the very next week, they announced the Section 31 movie, not the Section 31 series. So you're probably right. I'm sure Star Wars is going the same way for the same reasons. It all comes down to the almighty dollar every single time.
Well, because of cost of production, I think is one thing. They're fighting for their what?
Martin. I watched the coronation. I was expecting. You're expecting the Imperial March, Martin, when Charles was.
No, actually, one of the funniest things is go on YouTube and look up Star Wars episode. New Hope, the throne room scene without music. And there's a basically they take that whole scene at the end of the original Star Wars and they just take the music out, and there's no other there's just like it's hysterical because I think there's like Chewbacca gives one growl, and then they put in people like coughing like because it's just quiet. It's like
when they get their medals
because they don't say anything. Yeah, they don't say anything.
It's just them looking at each other.
Look it up. Just look it up on YouTube.
It's a lot of eye contact acting.
You will piss yourself laughing. It is so funny because you're like, without the music, it's like it doesn't make sense. It's just these people really quiet. They're like every once in a while you hear somebody cough. It's epic. It really is.
That's awesome.
So anyway, yeah, but I guess I think getting back to the miniseries, I think the reason is because you got to remember they're all competing for everybody's viewership and their dollars on their streaming services. So that's why we only get 10 episodes of anything now.
Which is because don't they realize that people subscribe, watch the show, and then
their hope is that they keep coming out like Paramount clearly has
like the Marvel
flag in the Star Trek thing, so they're going to always try to have a Star Trek show running so that it at least keeps those people.
Marvel's doing the same thing. Marvel had those things lined up for like 24 months out.
Yep,
like they were good to go.
As long as one ends, another one starts, so it keeps going. Paramount, they have had a lot of Star Trek shows, but they've had other shows mixed in there.
Yeah.
That are popular and worth watching.
Like what else is on Paramount? I guess I'm watching.
I'll tell you some good stuff that's on Paramount. Well, The Offer, which is a miniseries, is excellent. Another one is Mayor of Kingstown, which has Jeremy Renner. Is a very good. It's not sci-fi at all. These are not sci-fi shows.
Like I know why.
Evil is an excellent. Evil is a really good show.
Why am I keeping my Paramount subscription?
Yeah, I mean, I know that's kind of like, but their Stranger World is starting in the next month, so the thing is, you're going to cancel it for 1 month to save $10.
Yeah, and then
for $6 if you get the commercial version.
They're banking on you letting it ride.
Exactly, right? It's just not worth. It's not worth canceling for a month to say, I'm just not that frugal. I guess I don't know. But yeah, and I don't, I will drop. I'm almost telling you, Netflix hasn't had anything great in a while. After might just keep dumping until Stranger Things comes back. Yeah,
I can't think
they haven't had anything that great.
Netflix. Oh, I'm watching who's doing Citadel, and I want to see Silo, but Silo's Apple, and I don't have.
That's Amazon. I just started watching that. It's pretty good.
The Silo or Citadel?
Citadel.
So yeah, Citadel is a bit Born Identity. It's a bit spy versus spy. Yeah. Yes, I'm down for that.
Amazon Prime.
I have to watch Apple stuff on
Amazon Prime's been doing really good with stuff. I mean, it's the last season of Miss Maisel, which is a great show. If you don't watch that one, I highly recommend Marvelous Miss Maisel.
The one on Apple is Ted Lasso. Is Ted
Lasso? I love Ted Lasso. You know what I love about Ted? I know we're off Star Wars. Sorry, guys.
We'll come back in a second.
Ted Lasso is. You know what I love about it? It's just a feel-good show.
That's why I want to watch it.
It just makes you, every time I watch that show, you're smiling at the end of it. I don't know what it is about that show.
I will find it on my questionably legal television. And
yeah, it's really just Ted Lasso. It's on Apple. I recommend it. Watch it if you can. It's in they're running their third season now.
Anyway,
there's something else. And like on HBO Max, Succession is really good if you like that.
Oh yeah, what else was I?
Yeah. So, which is going to be just called Max.
Do you remember when HBO was like the one putting out original stuff, and they were like, "It's not TV, it's HBO." And like you knew it was like back to Soprano days.
I remember one of HBO's first show was called what the heck was the name of that show? It's on tip of my tongue. Was the guy he was like as a kid he always watched television, so every time
he'd see the TV. Yes. I know exactly
what the heck is the name of that show. Anyway, that, and then they had Larry Sanders Show, which is still funny. I was actually started rewatching Larry Sanders Show. It's still funny, even though it's 30-something years old. Dream On. Thank you, Chris.
Bill wants a Hulu recommendation. Yeah, Bill, what was I just watching on Hulu? There's always something somewhere. Hulu was. I had to go over to Hulu so I could watch The Orville.
Yeah, well, it's on Disney now, right? Yeah.
It is on Disney now.
I don't know if we're going to get another season of that. That's still up in the air.
We don't.
So
anyway, back to Mando. What do you guys think? What does the future hold for Din Djarin and Grogu? Are they,
So yeah, what do you think? Do you think what I think is maybe they're going to start retiring them? At least they're going to become a lesser character, and I think it's going to be more of.
Here's the thing, though. I could see them retiring Din Djarin, but Grogu is still technically a child, which means he has years ahead of him.
Right, but I mean, he's 50 years old.
He's already 50, but Yoda was like 800.
And he's still, right, he was 900 or something like that.
Yaddle's not as old as Yoda, but she was up there too. Anyway, they're very long-lived. I guess what I'm saying is this character feels like it could.
When does he start really becoming more of a?
When does he
talk? He's still like almost like an infant.
I mean, Yaddle and Yoda both had fluent English. Yeah. Well, no, they didn't. They had Yoda speak. No, wait, Yaddle spoke normal English. Yoda was the only one who ever flipped his verbs and put the verbs at the end.
Well, he was maybe from a different part of the Yoda planet.
It's his dialect, I guess.
This is dialect. Okay. Dave Alexander saying Rabbit Hole is interesting on Paramount. Yeah, I haven't watched that one, Doc.
They tried a viral thing for that, and it didn't fly for some reason.
So Kent saying the Shadow Council forms into the First Order. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Who knows? I mean, clearly, I think Favreau has pretty much said that was the plan, was to try to drive the storyline towards that, so that Force Awakens makes more sense. But we're still like decades away.
But we'll need to know why we don't see Grogu during the Force Awakens, like during those next 3.
He's in a galaxy far, far away.
We don't see any of them. We don't see Ahsoka. Is she gone by then? Well,
we don't know. Again, it's 30 years from 30
years. Yeah, I get years.
30 years is a big, long time. A lot of stuff could happen.
Yeah, that's true.
We don't know. Ahsoka disappeared anyway. Remember when in Jedi?
That's right.
In Clone Wars, remember she left the Jedi Order.
But then she left the Jedi Order.
She came back.
Fulcrum.
Right, and then she came back in Rebels, right?
I was back in Rebels as Fulcrum.
Yeah.
And then we see her in. So when we see her in Mandalorian, this is post Rebels, or is this pre Rebels? No, it's post. She's older.
It's about the same time, I think, timeline, because Rebels was shortly after. No, Rebels was right after. Rebels was before New Hope.
Rebels is before New Hope. This is all after.
So this is all after Jedi.
This is all after Jedi. So she's older. Yeah.
There's at least a 10-year probably difference in time.
I need a time. I need like a map.
You need like there's a lot of the books, by the way, do give you that. I've noticed Star Wars books. They'll put you like where Star Trek does that too. So depending on the writer.
I have a cheat
where this happened.
Up on my
I love that when I love like I think David Mack does it and our friend there
Dayton Ward.
They'll put that at the beginning of their books, like where this story, especially if it's a TOS story, which is mostly what I read. They'll say this happened between this episode and this episode on the original series, or after the last, it happened after the last episode. So you kind of know where it falls into the time.
Yeah. Bill says Grogu talking would end it. Like, yeah, like remember on Moonlight, like couples constant. Remember on Moonlighting, the whole point of Moonlighting, will they, won't they, will they, won't they? And when they finally get together,
that's what we say. Once it's done. So
Grogu talking would end it. Yeah.
The beauty of Grogu is he never has to grow up because he's a doll. I mean, he's not like, he always had these sitcoms that had kids and they were cute until the kids grew up.
Yeah, that's
true. It was like, then you got to bring in another kid. It was always the nephew or something they bring in to try to bring in another kid.
That's true.
But it never worked. And it never worked. So here you have the perfect never. It's just like a cartoon. It's like The Simpsons or Family Guy. The kids never age because it's a cartoon. They don't.
That's true. That's true. But we are he is still trying to.
I think we're going to see him develop, but because of his longevity and his longer development cycle, clearly being 50, he's still like a toddler. I think you have a lot of time for him to develop.
Yeah. Oh, they lay that right out. The very, very first episode, they lay right. Din's IG-11 was like, no, the other way around. Din was like, I thought my target was 50, and IG-11 was like different species age differently. So they, nipped that in the bud. So I guess Grogu could stay infantile until he's 100. I guess we don't know.
Theoretically, I guess. Yeah, I mean, it's from an evolutionary standpoint, it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Makes zero sense.
Why would you make your children take?
Yeah, why would you make your children be so childlike?
So long to be vulnerable for so long, but
so small.
It's adorable. It's make believe. So, but so I don't know. Yeah, I don't know where they're going with it. We'll see. It's all locked up in his head. I know there's been some rumors that Favreau is getting kind of pissed off. I hope not, because I think
I hope not.
If he leaves or Filoni leaves,
then they're in trouble.
They're going to be in trouble. Because I think they're the only reason
I completely agree with
been as good as it has been up to this
They've
point.
had some good directors. I'll give you that.
Yeah, the director, but I think as a showrunner, they're the ones directing where the show goes, how it looks.
Yep, how it feels.
How it feels. And I think those are all very, very important things that make it connect to the original movies, that we all kind of want it to be. I think that's why a lot of people, there's a lot of things wrong with the prequels, but the prequels didn't have the same feeling as the original 3 movies did. It just didn't feel like the same thing.
No.
These do. For some reason, I think that's what Favreau gets it, that you have to have that connection to the old stuff. It's just like when they did
lived in
when DS9 did the crossover episode, the Tribbles and or even Enterprise did In the Mirror Darkly.
But
they recreated the original stuff from the 60s so that it looked the same and it had that same feel so that we all connected.
Yeah, exactly.
We made that connection.
Exactly.
Which they're not doing now. They go back and look in the past and it looks different and it doesn't have the same feel.
Chris LaRoche, Grogu in puberty is going to be murder. Is it wrong, Chris LaRoche, that I read that going to be murder, like heart to heart? Do you remember the beginning of Heart to Heart? And when they met, it was murder.
I don't remember that. I remember the show, but I don't remember that part. But
oh, you guys, this show, Rizzo, the more I think about it, the more you're absolutely right. Luke Skywalker dropped the mic. That was supposed to be the end.
I don't think it was necessarily supposed to be the end of the Mandalorian TV show. I think it was supposed to be end of the Grogu story.
The Grogu portion of the show.
Yeah. I think Grogu was supposed to go with Luke, and that was the end of it. Mando was going to go off on a new adventure. Maybe with Boba Fett, we'd see more Boba Fett and him together. or they were going to bring the Bo-Katan thing. I think the Bo-Katan thing was probably always in the works.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. I agree. The Bo-Katan thing probably was always in the works. They just didn't know they were going to have a toddler, babysitting duties while they were fighting to
another thing I've learned every season. Have you noticed? It's like a Mandalorian thing now. I think it's just, at first I was like groaning, but then I'm like, oh wait, this is just a Mandalorian thing. They have to fight some giant creature.
Yeah.
It has to be some giant math creature. Every season they fight a giant creature. Yeah. Somebody does.
Yeah.
So this year, this season, they had the big crocodile thing that came out of the water. And then the bird thing. Yeah.
And that was like a side quest. That is that's what I want to talk about real quick before we end, because I know it's 7:55. The Mandalorian, their show structure is, here's where we are. Here's our goal. Let's do 17 side quests to fill the 8 episodes, and then we'll get to our goal. Like, it's never just here's the goal. It's like side quest, side quest, side quest, a side quest off the side quest, a side quest off the side quest of the side quest. I hate that.
Really? I didn't mind it. I don't mind it because I like seeing the other storylines and stuff. I don't mind it. Yeah, I'm the opposite. I think it kind of makes the story more interesting, rather than just a straight line.
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Like, some of them,
it's almost like episodic.
Some of them do contribute
because episodic with an arc.
Yeah, they give you a good character arc, or you learn something, or you get, it's like puzzle pieces. They all fit together. But sometimes it's that NCIS with Lizzo. What was that for? What was that side quest for? Like, what did we learn?
To get Lizzo, Jack Black, and
Chris Lloyd
and Christopher Lloyd in there.
Were we supposed to seeing like a Bo-Katan and Mando learning to work together kind of thing? Like, what was happening there?
They needed to fill an extra episode that they didn't have anything written for.
They had 8 episodes. They wrote 7.
They wanted to get them in there. Lizzo's very popular with a younger crowd. So my wife loved it. She was geeking all over the fact that Lizzo.
I love Lizzo.
She loves Lizzo too. So I'm not a particularly Lizzo fan, but it's not my type of music. Nothing against her personally.
I just didn't understand the point of the show.
You know what? She has a good agent that got her in. Maybe she's a Star Wars fan.
It wasn't.
I mean, we saw that. We've seen that with Star Trek.
And
especially with TNG, we saw that where famous people would basically go into their agent and say, "I want to be on the show because I'm a huge Star Trek fan."
That's true.
I just want. I don't care.
Maybe that's the thing now.
Yeah, I mean, what's his name? Nick Fleetwood was on a TNG episode. You didn't even know it was him because he was in full makeup. You couldn't even tell.
Mandalorian has had its share of comedians. It had Horatio Sands.
Look up Lizzo. She's a pop singer.
It had Amy Sedaris. It had who else have we had for guest Jack Black? Guest comedians. We've had our run.
On Mando?
On Mando.
Bill Barr.
Yep. Got him.
That's true, Kent. Yeah. Yeah, there's been a few. I mean, I think that's kind of the normal that they'll drop a few known people.
Chris LaRoche, who's Lizzo?
I know. I told you were talking. I said that. I said he's got to look. She's a singer. She's pop singer. Just look her up. You won't like her, Chris. You won't like her music, Chris. I guarantee.
New man on the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah. So, but she's very popular. She's very popular. All right. It is 7:50. I think we've talked about this. This is stuff. I don't know. We didn't even talk about what we're going to do next week.
No, we don't have a plan for next week. We are.
We got one to do next week. Any ideas? Any?
How shall we finish out the month of May?
Is it finishing? No, we got more.
Yeah, we got 2 more weeks. We got 24 and 31.
We got three weeks of May left.
What can we do? 3 weeks. 17, 24, and 31. What can we do to get you guys to volunteer to come on? Because we thought for sure you'd all be like, "Hey, I want to be on the Mando show." And really surprised.
Yeah, I mean, we're just not even that. Just topics. What do you guys want us to think us? What do you want to hear us talk about for an hour? So anyway, you can always send us a message about that.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be it live. What does Roy has been on a world tour?
Roy's still on his world tour. He will be welcoming, and he's going out to New Jersey to do that Star Wars convention. Star Trek fan convention out in New Jersey. So he will be welcoming the team from that convention onto his show on Thursday night, special night, Thursday night.
The one on Long Island or New Jersey?
Long Island. I'm sorry if I said New Jersey.
You said New Jersey.
I meant Long Island. Phil Merkel is off from WUSB this week, but next week he'll have Overforward on with their Kickstarter for their new album.
Okay. Martin, I'm sorry. I don't think we can do Howard the Duck.
Maybe not Howard the Duck.
I don't think I got an hour of Howard the Duck.
You know, Chris, we don't like my favorite stuff was some of the stuff we did early on. Like we've already done Fifth Element. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, that was like the first or second episode we ever did. Was Fifth Element.
Oh, you know what I watched? You guys, I talked about this. Maybe we can finally do it. I watched that crazy Chinese movie, Wandering Earth. I watched Wandering Earth 1. Now I got to go see Wandering Earth 2. Oh my God, what a show that was. Wow. Epic.
We'll obviously come up with something for next week.
We'll come up with something. If you want me to do Crazy Chinese Story, Wandering Earth, I'll do it for you because wow.
Never seen. So can't help you there. So anyway, I guess that pretty much wraps up.
Fun in Long Island, Bill.
Man, yeah. I was thinking about. I would like to go to that show too, but it's kind of a little far and.
A little far.
Yeah. So, but not that bad. I'd have to take a ferry to get there. So, all right, guys. Well, we'll see you next week with something. Until then, live long and prosper. And
thanks for tuning in.
As usual, we'll see you. Good night, folks.